Chapter 41. The Road from Germanis. When the members of Wight's brigade presented their mercenary guild papers to the castle, they were admitted to a courtyard. A cheery Lady Exantine met them and praised their new armor pieces and well-tailored tabards. She thought the goggles for Gwen were genius and longed for a pair for herself that would show her the night as Gwen saw it. But then she got down to business. In a drawing room, she presented them with their official contract. There was a message from the king addressed to the general of the insurrectionists that they were to head north until they found them and see to it that it was delivered to him. The particulars of the message were private, but she summarized it for them. They would be delivering a polite reply inviting the man to the castle to discuss what such an arrangement might look like. So, on the surface, it wasn't a refusal, but they didn't realistically expect their commander to turn up for polite conversation. But this way, turning it down was on their side. Delta thanked her for confiding in her the gist of the message, and also for the payment in advance. And, there being no further business, they said another fond farewell and set off for the gate of the city. "Sorry to go, not sorry to go," summarized Gwen. Zipper nodded. "It was a great place, but too many things to spend your money on. It's easier to keep honest out on the road." Delta was lying in the body of the wagon, idly stroking Johnston. She looked at the sky, and she looked at the canopy, but she didn't really see either. It was the city she thought about, and the big beautiful walls, the sturdy, robust, and deeply fortified walls. She had seen what Exantine had wanted the Imperialists to see. What had she not wanted them to see? That was a much harder question. The classical methods of attacking would not help. The amount of people it would take to protect a ram long enough to breach the gates would be too much. Even with whatever magical sapping they had, they would have to get under the flagged ditch and bring down a wide enough area of the wall to breach. The lower slope was a good deterrent to attack by catapult or trebuchet. They might possibly build a ramp. This, like a ramp, would need cover, but they were good at their tortoise formation, and that would be enough to shield a bucket brigade bringing fill to pile up a ramp. It would be a fairly large undertaking, and it would take some time to build something high enough to rise to the level of the walls. Next, Delta considered the cliffs forming the northern defenses. They could provide a worrying approach. Although great as a defense to invading the city from the side, it also formed a convenient platform overlooking the city. Siege engines could be mounted there that could bombard the city with little chance of return fire. That wouldn't breach the walls, but it would wreak havoc on the population and the town. She really hoped those cliffs had souterrains dug into them, so defenders could sally out and disturb any attack from above. Gwen eventually nudged Delta out of her reveries, such that she could take her midday nap. She was still, by nature, nocturnal, and grew a bit fuzzy in the middle of the day. And, although well-fitted, the straps did begin to wear on her after several hours. So Delta jogged along aside for a while to get the blood and mind flowing. She explained her thinking to Zipper to get a second opinion, and to settle her ideas in her mind. "Not bad," said Zipper. "You don't have to actually solve the problem. You just have to show that you've been smart enough to think about it. Ideally, you'll thought of something they haven't thought of." Pleased that her ideas passed muster, Delta put on her shoulder harness and new gorget, and worked on some practice moves to make sure that all the pieces worked well together. There was a brief bout of rain, but the air was warm, and it wasn't enough to stop them. By nightfall, Wight's brigade had made it as far as they wanted to, a major crossroads where the track branched in 4 directions. There was an inn there that had been told was doing good business and rumored to have excellent beer. They still felt pretty flush and opted again for the privacy of a room. Gwen was much more comfortable around others, now that they could communicate better. But she was still a goblin. Some people would remain stubbornly close-minded, no matter what. She was awaiting and alert when Delta woke up the next morning. She cocked an eyebrow at her. Gwen nodded at Zipper. With some cold water, they were eventually able to get her up and awake, enough for Gwen to talk. "There are watchers outside," she said. "Johnson smelled them at night. I tried to circle behind, but they see and left, so probably scouts. Found nice hidey place. Smell like human." Delta scratched her chin. "This is awfully near to Germanis. I wouldn't think they would be scouting this far afield." Who else could it be? Asked Zipper. True, Delta agreed. I guess it doesn't matter. We're actually looking for them. They set off promptly anyway. The next leg was a long one. With good speed, they should make it all the way to Strathsnowes by evening, a village on the ford, and yet another river making its way from inland to the Great Lake. The roads were in good repair this close to Germanis, but they didn't trust there wouldn't be obstacles as they went. The traffic eventually thinned out. They passed a few branches towards Germanis, towards which the bulk of the traffic went to and from. They were traveling faster than most, with 2 donkeys, a well-sprung wagon, and no market load. They passed very little on the road, until they were close to Strathsnowes. They could see a little more cultivated area ahead, where the river cut across the path, and a wagon loaded with hay was coming their way. The road was wide enough for 2, so they didn't need to negotiate who had to pull over, as they waved amiably at the farmers on their way out, towards the town. But as they passed, Johnson sat bolt upright and began to low growl. Easy, boy, said Zipper. Just some peasants. Gwen had also come alert, and she was stroking Johnson, trying to get a reading from him on what had upset him. Taking this in, Delta loosened up her glaive in its loopholes and swung to the running board of the wagon, watching the hay cart behind them. Stop the wagon, she said after a moment. Zipper started to protest, then stopped. She called the donkeys to halt, and then protested. What's up? Are we worried about a hay cart? They've stopped, said Delta. She stepped off the cart and retrieved her glaive. Zipper got off the other side and readied her spear. Gwen pulled herself to the back, where they had created a nice portal that she could shoot out of. Rapidly, she began stringing her bow. The hay cart had fully stopped, and the 3 farm hands had gotten off. Only they didn't move like farmers or civilians. They moved warily and cautiously. One stood out from the others and held his hands away from his side. He didn't hold a weapon, but he clearly could produce one quickly if needed. Wight's company, he called out across the distance. Yes, said Delta. Now that you know me, who are you? What business brings you here? He asked, ignoring the question. We're under contract to the kin of Envinio. Please state who you are and why you are delaying our business, said Delta, shifting the grip on her glaive to one less casual. Corporal Barrow, 7 Division, Imperial Scouts, he said. We're here to escort you into the village. Delta smiled wryly. After last night, I kind of expected to be expected. That's splendid. We have a message for your commander, and that will just make things all the much easier. She turned and got up to the wagon without paying them any further attention. The others followed suit and got the wagon going while the others were turning theirs around. Do we run for it? Asked Zipper. Delta shook her head. As you said this morning, we're actually looking for them. We were paid assuming it would take a week or 2 to find them. This just makes our profit larger. But they're so close, said Zipper. Yeah. I guess they really are attacking Germanis, said Delta, staring directly ahead.